David ran toward his brother as silver light blazed from his body. Vex's dark energy swirled above them like a tornado, growing bigger and more dangerous with each second. The signal was almost complete. Soon the entire Dominion fleet would arrive to destroy Earth. "You cannot stop me," Vex shouted over the howling wind. "I am more powerful than you." "Maybe," David said, not slowing down. "But I have something you don't." "What?" Vex snarled. "I know what I'm fighting for," David replied. The two brothers collided in the center of the clearing. Silver light crashed against dark energy with a sound like thunder. The force of the impact knocked down trees and shattered windows in David's house. David felt his brother's power trying to crush him, but he didn't fight it with force. Instead, he remembered everything Zara had taught him about Kepler abilities. He reached out with his mind and touched Vex's memories. What he saw made him gasp. Vex had been just a scared child when the Dominion found him. They had hurt him, broken his spirit, and taught him that mercy was weakness. His brother had suffered for 30 years, becoming a monster because he had never known human kindness. "I see what they did to you," David said sadly as their energies continued to clash. "I'm sorry you had to go through that alone. Don't pity me." Vex screamed, pouring more dark power into the attack. But David's words had shaken something deep inside his brother. For just a moment, the dark energy flickered. David seized that moment. Instead of attacking, he opened his mind completely and shared his own memories. He showed Vex what it felt like to be loved by human parents. He shared memories of neighbors who cared about him, of fixing cars for people who became friends, of Sarah bringing him soup just because she was kind. "This is what you could have had," David said gently. "This is what humans gave me." Vex staggered backward as David's memories flooded through him. "No, they made you weak." "They made me strong," David corrected. "Strong enough to protect people I care about. Strong enough to forgive even you." Above them, the dark energy signal began to weaken. Vex was losing control as emotions he had buried for 30 years came rushing back. But they were running out of time. In the distance, David could see lights in the sky. The Dominion fleet was already responding to the signal. "Zara," David called out, "I need your help." "Together!" Zara left Sarah's side and ran to David. She placed her hands on his shoulders, and their silver light combined into something brighter than either of them could create alone. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Something I should have learned long ago," David said. "I'm going to save my brother." Together, David and Zara sent their combined energy not into an attack, but into healing. They reached into Vex's mind and began to repair 30 years of damage. They showed him love instead of hate, hope instead of despair. Vex fell to his knees as his dark power crumbled away. I remember now," he whispered. "I remember our real parents. They were kind. They loved us." "Yes," David said, kneeling beside his brother. "And they would want us to protect people, not hurt them." The dark energy signal finally collapsed. Above them, the Dominion ship stopped approaching and began to turn away, confused by the mixed signals. But the danger wasn't over. Vex's damaged ship was leaking energy that would explode soon. "The blast would destroy the entire town. We have to stop the ship from exploding," David said. "How?" Zara asked. "The energy leak is too big for us to contain." David looked around desperately. Then he saw Sarah standing by his truck, and he had an idea. "Sarah," he called out, "start my truck and drive it to the old radio tower on the hill." "What?" Sarah looked confused but did as he asked. David grabbed Zara and Vex's hands. "The radio tower broadcasts to the whole county. If we can connect our energy to it, we can spread the containment field across a much larger area." Zara finished, understanding his plan. "But David, that much energy could kill us." "Not if we work together," David said. "All three of us." Vex looked up with tears in his eyes. "You would trust me, after everything I've done?" "You're my brother," David said simply, "and everyone deserves a second chance." They ran to the radio tower as the crashed ship began to glow brighter. Sarah had the truck waiting for them. David jumped into the driver's seat while Zara and Vex climbed into the back. "Hold on!" David shouted, driving up the steep hill to the radio tower. They reached the top just as the ship's energy reached critical levels. David could see the glow from miles away. "Now," David said. All three of them placed their hands on the radio tower's metal base. David's silver light, Zara's pure energy, and even Vex's reformed power flowed into the tower. The entire structure began to glow like a giant lighthouse. The energy field spread out from the tower in all directions, creating a protective dome over the entire town. When the ship exploded, the blast was contained harmlessly within their combined power. The explosion lit up the night sky like a second sun, but no one was hurt. As the light faded, the three of them collapsed, exhausted, but alive. "Is it over?" Sarah asked, helping David to his feet. David looked at the sky. The Dominion ships were gone. He looked at his brother, who was crying as he remembered what it felt like to feel love instead of hate. "Yes," David said. "It's over." 6 months later, David was back in his garage, fixing cars as always. But now his garage served another purpose. It was a secret meeting place for people who needed help. Zara lived in the house next door, officially working as David's business partner. She helped other alien refugees who came to Earth looking for safety. Her people had found Earth and established a small, hidden colony in the mountains. Vex had chosen to stay on Earth as well. He spent his days using his knowledge of Dominion technology to help Earth's governments prepare for future threats. At night, he helped David and Zara care for refugee families. "The healing is working," Zara told David as they watched Vex teach alien children how to play human games. "He remembers more of his true self every day." David smiled. "Humans have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. I think it also takes a village to heal a broken heart." That evening there was a knock on David's door. He opened it to find a small alien child, scared and alone. "Please," the child said in broken English. "They told me to find the human who helps people like me." David knelt down to the child's level and smiled. "You found him. Come in. You're safe now." Zara appeared with a warm blanket and hot chocolate. Vex helped translate the child's language. Sarah brought homemade soup, just like she always did on Thursdays. As David watched his strange new family care for another lost soul, he realized something important. The greatest power in the universe wasn't advanced technology or special abilities. It was kindness. It was the willingness to help strangers, even when you didn't understand them. It was the choice to build bridges instead of walls. It was the human ability to see the good in people, even when they had forgotten how to see it in themselves. Outside, the stars shined down on Earth. Among them, hidden from most eyes, were the lights of new ships. But these weren't warships. They were families coming to join the growing community of humans and aliens, learning to live together in peace. David had learned that being human wasn't about the species you were born into. It was about how you chose to treat others. And in that way, everyone in his garage that night, human, Kepler, and even former Dominion, was truly human. The greatest victory wasn't defeating the enemy. It was turning the enemy into family. David's hands shook with anger as he heard Sarah's scream echo through the mine. Sarah was a kind woman who lived next door. She brought him soup every Thursday and always asked how he was doing. She didn't deserve to be hurt because of him. "This is my fault," David said, hitting the steering wheel. "I should have thought about the people who might get hurt." Zara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You couldn't have known this would happen. Your brother is using your human emotions against you." "Then I have to go back," David said. "I can't let him hurt an innocent person. If you give me to him, millions of innocent people will die," Zara reminded him softly. "My entire race will be extinct." David closed his eyes, trying to think clearly. There had to be another way. He couldn't sacrifice Sarah, but he couldn't let Zara's people be destroyed either. "What if we don't have to choose?" David said suddenly. "What if we can save Sarah and stop my brother at the same time?" "How?" Zara asked. David looked around the dark mine. He had played in these tunnels as a child with Mike. He knew every passage and hidden chamber. "I know this place better than anyone." "And you said Keplers have a connection with technology, right?" Zara nodded. "Yes. We can understand and control machines. Then maybe we can turn their own technology against them." David smiled grimly. "But I'm going to need you to teach me more about my abilities." For the next few minutes, Zara helped David practice controlling his powers. He learned to send energy through metal objects and feel the electrical systems in machines. It was like learning to use muscles he never knew he had. "You're a fast learner," Zara said as David made the truck's headlights flash in patterns. "Most Keplers train for years to do what you just did." "I've been around machines my whole life," David said. "I just never knew I was talking to them." They heard footsteps echoing in the mine tunnels. Vex's soldiers were searching for them. "Time's up," David said. "Are you ready?" Zara squeezed his hand. "I trust you." David started the truck and drove deeper into the mine. He knew exactly where he was going, to the old equipment storage area where Mike used to keep the heavy machinery. When they reached the storage chamber, David turned on the truck's headlights. The beams revealed old mining equipment covered in dust. Drilling machines, conveyor belts, and most importantly, the main electrical control panel for the mine. "Perfect," David said, jumping out of the truck. "Zara, I need you to help me connect to all this machinery at once." "What are you planning?" she asked. "My brother thinks he has all the advantages because he has advanced alien technology," David explained as he placed his hands on the control panel. "But he doesn't understand human engineering. These old machines are simple, but they're built tough, and there are a lot of them." Zara understood immediately. She placed her hands next to David's on the control panel. Together, they sent their combined energy through the mine's electrical system. All around them, old machines began to hum to life. Conveyor belts started moving, drilling equipment began spinning, and dust fell from the ceiling as the entire mine began to vibrate. "Now," David said, "let's go save Sarah." They drove back toward the mine entrance, but now they weren't alone. Behind them, controlled by their combined will, a dozen pieces of heavy mining equipment followed like metal soldiers. As they emerged from the mine, David could see Vex's ship hovering above his house in the distance. Bright lights surrounded the area, and he could hear Sarah crying. "There they are," Zara pointed. David could see his brother standing near the ship's entrance. Sarah was on her knees beside him, her hands tied behind her back. Several Dominion soldiers stood guard with their energy weapons ready. "Remember," David said as they approached, "I'm going to pretend to surrender. When I give you the signal, use all your power to disable their ship." "What if it doesn't work?" Zara asked. "Then we fight with everything we have," David said simply. He drove the truck into the clearing and stopped 50 feet from Vex. The mining equipment stayed hidden behind them in the darkness. "I'm here," David called out, getting out of the truck with his hands raised. "Let Sarah go." Vex smiled coldly. "Where is the traitor?" "I'm here," Zara said, stepping out with her hands up as well. "Excellent," Vex said. "You see, brother, humans make you weak. Your emotions are easy to control." David walked closer, still pretending to surrender. "You said our parents are alive. Were you telling the truth?" Vex's expression became cruel. They were alive, until they refused to forget about their lost son on this backward planet. "The Dominion doesn't tolerate weakness." David stopped walking. "You're saying they're dead?" "I killed them myself," Vex said proudly. "Just like I killed everyone else who showed mercy instead of strength." Something inside David broke. The silver light in his scars flared brighter than ever before. All around the clearing, every piece of electronic equipment began to spark and flicker. "You killed our parents?" David's voice was filled with power and rage. "They were holding me back," Vex said. But for the first time he looked nervous as David's power continued to grow. "Now," David shouted. Zara threw her hands toward Vex's ship and released all her stored energy. At the same time, David commanded the hidden mining equipment to attack. Drilling machines burst from the forest, conveyor belts wrapped around the soldiers' legs, and metal arms grabbed their weapons. Vex's ship began to spark and smoke as Zara's energy overloaded its systems. The advanced alien technology couldn't handle the primitive but powerful mining equipment attacking from all directions. In the confusion, David ran to Sarah and cut her bonds with a piece of sharp metal. "David," she cried. "What's happening? Who are these people?" "I'll explain later," David said. "Right now we need to get you somewhere safe." But Vex wasn't finished. Even as his ship crashed to the ground in flames, he stood up with dark energy crackling around his entire body. "If I can't have the galaxy," Vex snarled, "then I'll destroy this worthless planet." He raised both hands toward the sky. Dark energy began to spiral upward, growing larger and more dangerous with each second. David realized with horror that his brother was preparing to call down more Dominion ships. "He's signaling the fleet." Zara shouted over the noise of the energy storm. "If they come, Earth will be destroyed." David looked at Sarah, then at Zara, then at his brother who had become a monster. The choice was clear. He had to stop Vex, even if it meant sacrificing himself. "Take care of Sarah," David told Zara, "and tell my people that some aliens can be trusted." "David, no!" Zara cried, but it was too late. David ran straight toward his brother, silver light blazing from every scar on his body. The two powers, light and darkness, were about to collide. Rushed inside, carrying weapons that glowed with red energy. "Surrender now," the lead figure commanded in perfect English. His voice was deep and cold. "You cannot escape us, Zara of Kepler, 442b. But as the commander stepped into the light, David saw his face through the helmet's clear visor. His heart stopped. The face looking back at him was almost exactly like his own. The same eyes, the same bone structure. But this face was marked with silver scars that pulsed with dark energy. "Well, well," the commander said, removing his helmet. "Look what we found. Hello, little brother. I have been searching for you for a very long time." David stared in shock. "Brother?" Commander Vex smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Yes. We were on the same ship that crashed here 30 years ago. But while you were raised by soft humans, I was found by the Dominion. They taught me the true power of our bloodline." He raised his hand, and dark energy crackled between his fingers. "Join me, David. Together we can rule this galaxy. All I ask is that you give me the traitor." David looked at Zara, then back at his brother. The choice would determine the fate of two worlds. David stared at Commander Vex, his mind racing. This man looked exactly like him, but felt completely different. Where David's scars glowed with warm silver light, his brother's pulsed with cold darkness. "I don't understand," David said slowly. "We're really brothers?" Vex stepped closer, his armored soldiers staying behind him. "We came from the same family pod on the transport ship. When it crashed, the Dominion found me first. They trained me to use our true power." He raised his hand, and dark energy danced around his fingers, "while you wasted your life fixing broken human machines." Zara moved protectively closer to David. "Don't listen to him," she whispered. "The Dominion corrupts everything they touch." Vex laughed coldly. "Corrupts? I prefer the word perfects. Look at me, brother. I command a fleet of starships. I have power beyond your imagination, and I'm offering to share it with you." "What do you want from me?" David asked. "Simple," Vex said, pointing at Zara. "Give me the traitor and her memories. In return, I'll take you to our real family. Yes, David, our parents are alive. They serve the Dominion now, and they want to meet you." David's heart jumped. His parents were alive? But then he looked at Zara's terrified face and remembered what she had told him. If Vex got the colony location from her mind, an entire race would die. "I need time to think," David said. Vex nodded. "You have 1 minute. But know this. If you refuse, I will take her by force. And you will watch your precious humans burn when we conquer this world." Behind Vex, his soldiers raised their red energy weapons. David could feel the heat from the weapons even from across the room. David looked around desperately. They were trapped in his living room with nowhere to go. But wait, he remembered something. When his house was built, the previous owner had dug a basement storage room. David had never used it much, but there was a tunnel that led to an old storm drain. He caught Zara's eye and glanced quickly toward the kitchen. She nodded slightly, understanding his plan. "All right," David said loudly. "I'll consider your offer. But first I want to know about our parents. Where are they?" As Vex began to answer, David grabbed Zara's hand and sent a pulse of energy through his house's electrical system. Every light bulb exploded at once, plunging the room into darkness. "The basement!" David shouted, pulling Zara toward the kitchen. Vex roared in anger. "Stop them! Don't let them escape!" Red energy bolts filled the darkness where David and Zara had been standing. The soldiers crashed into furniture, trying to follow them through the dark house. David threw open the basement door and pushed Zara down the stairs. Behind them he could hear Vex shouting orders in the alien language. "This way!" David led Zara through his cluttered basement to a small wooden door in the corner. He yanked it open, revealing a narrow tunnel that smelled of earth and old rainwater. They crawled through the tunnel as fast as they could. Behind them, they heard the basement door explode open. Bright lights flooded the space they had just left. "There!" Vex's voice echoed through the tunnel. "They went through there. Follow them." David and Zara emerged from the tunnel into the storm drain behind David's house. Rain was still falling hard, soaking them instantly. But David knew this area better than any alien soldier. "My truck is parked on the old mining road," David said, wiping rain from his eyes. "If we can reach it." They ran through the forest behind David's house. Tree branches grabbed at their clothes and rain made the ground slippery. But David's awakened abilities helped him see in the darkness better than before. Energy weapons fired behind them, cutting through tree trunks like they were made of paper. The soldiers were fast and getting closer. "There!" David pointed to his old pickup truck parked beside a fallen log. It wasn't much to look at, but David had modified the engine himself. It was much more powerful than it appeared. They reached the truck just as the first soldier emerged from the forest. David started the engine while Zara jumped into the passenger seat. "Can this machine outrun their ships?" Zara asked, looking worried. "It can't fly," David said, putting the truck in gear. "But I know these roads better than they do." He pressed the gas pedal to the floor. The truck roared to life and shot forward on the muddy road. In his rearview mirror, David could see bright lights following them through the trees. "Hold on," David said. "This is going to be rough." He turned the truck onto a path that was barely wide enough for the vehicle. Branches scraped against the windows as they bounced over rocks and holes. David's enhanced connection with machines told him exactly how much the truck could handle. Zara placed her hands on the truck's dashboard. Silver light flowed from her fingers into the metal. "I can make it stronger," she said. "My energy will protect us." The truck began to glow with the same silver light as their scars. David felt the engine become more powerful and the frame become tougher. They crashed through a fallen tree that should have stopped them completely. Behind them, the Dominion soldiers tried to follow in their hovering vehicles. But David knew something they didn't. This path led to the old mining facility where his friend Mike used to work. The entrance was hidden, and the tunnels inside were like a maze. "Where are we going?" Zara asked as they bounced over a particularly rough section of road. "Somewhere they can't follow us easily," David said. "And somewhere I can think of a plan." They reached the abandoned mine just as the soldiers' lights appeared behind them. David drove the truck straight into the dark mouth of the main tunnel. Inside the mine, David turned off the engine and lights. They sat in complete darkness, listening to their hearts beating fast. "This should give us some time," David whispered. But their relief was short-lived. A new voice echoed from the mine entrance. It was Vex, and he sounded very angry. "I know you're in there, little brother," Vex called out. "You cannot hide forever. Surrender now, and I promise the human girl will die quickly." David's blood went cold. "Human girl? What does he mean?" Zara grabbed his arm in sudden fear. "He's not talking about me." "David, is there someone else? Someone you care about?" David's heart stopped. He had completely forgotten. Tonight was Thursday. Every Thursday evening, his neighbor Sarah brought him homemade soup. She was probably at his house right now, wondering where he was. Through the mine entrance, they heard a woman's terrified scream. "Sarah," David whispered. Vex's voice came again, cold and pleased. "That's right, brother. I have your human friend. She's quite pretty. It would be a shame if something happened to her." David clenched his fists. The silver light in his scars pulsed brighter with his anger. "If you hurt her," David called out. "Then come and stop me," Vex replied. "You have 5 minutes before I lose my patience. Bring the traitor, or the human dies." The rain fell hard on David's garage roof. Thunder crashed outside as he worked on an old car engine. It was past 2 in the morning, but David couldn't sleep. His hands were covered in oil as he turned a wrench. He liked working alone at night when the world was quiet. David was 30 years old and lived alone in a small house outside town. He fixed cars and trucks for people in the village. Everyone knew him as the quiet mechanic who could fix anything. But David had always felt different from others. Strange scars covered his arms, marks he'd had since birth. His parents died when he was young, and he never knew where the scars came from. Lightning lit up the dark garage. David wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and reached for his coffee cup. The hot liquid warmed him as rain drummed against the windows. He was about to go back to work when he heard something strange. Crash! The sound came from outside behind his house. It wasn't thunder. David knew the sound of thunder well. This was different, like metal hitting the ground hard. He put down his coffee and listened carefully. The rain made it hard to hear anything else. David walked to the window and looked out into the darkness. His backyard was empty except for old car parts and broken machinery. Lightning flashed again, but he saw nothing unusual. Maybe a tree branch fell, he thought, or maybe someone threw trash over his fence. He was about to return to his work when he heard another sound. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at his front door. David froze. Who would come to his house at 2 a.m. during a storm? Maybe it was an emergency. Someone might need help with their car. David walked through his small house to the front door. The knocking came again, but softer this time. More like someone asking for help than demanding attention. Who is it? David called through the door. A woman's voice answered, but the words were strange. She spoke English, but her accent was unlike anything David had ever heard. Please, help me. David looked through the small window next to his door. Lightning flashed, and he saw her. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, but something was very wrong. Her skin had a strange blue-silver color that seemed to glow softly in the dark. She wore only torn pieces of cloth that barely covered her body. Blood ran down her arms and legs from deep cuts. David's heart started beating faster. This woman needed medical help immediately. He forgot about how strange she looked and quickly opened the door. "Oh my God," David said as he saw her up close. "You're hurt badly. Come inside." The woman looked up at him with large, bright eyes that seemed to shine like stars. She was shaking from cold and pain. "Thank you," she whispered in her strange accent. They are coming for me." Before David could ask who was coming, the woman collapsed. David caught her before she hit the ground. She was lighter than she looked, and her skin felt warm despite the cold rain. As he lifted her, David noticed something impossible. Her wounds were glowing. Not bright like light bulbs, but with a soft silver glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. David stared in shock. He had never seen anything like this before. The woman was unconscious now, her head resting against his chest. David carried her inside and laid her on his couch. He grabbed towels and his first aid kit. As he cleaned her wounds, he saw that they weren't normal cuts. They looked like burn marks, but in perfect geometric patterns, like someone had drawn circuits on her skin with fire. The woman opened her eyes as David bandaged her arm. "You are kind," she said softly. "Most humans would be afraid." "Humans?" David stopped working. "What do you mean, humans?" The woman sat up slowly, wincing in pain. She looked at David's face carefully, then at his arms. Her eyes grew wide when she saw his birth scars. "You have the marks," she whispered. "But that is impossible. There are no others left on this world." David looked down at his scars. In the dim light of his living room, they seemed different somehow. Were they glowing too? Just barely, but enough to notice. "What are you talking about?" David asked. "These are just birth defects. I've had them my whole life." The woman reached out and touched one of David's scars with her finger. The moment her skin touched his, both their scars began to glow brighter. David felt a strange warmth spread through his body, like electricity but gentle. The woman gasped and pulled her hand back. She stared at David with shock and something that looked like hope. "You are not fully human," she whispered. "You are like me. You are one of us." David's mind spun with confusion. Before he could ask what she meant, bright lights appeared outside his windows. Not lightning this time, but steady beams that moved across his yard like searchlights. The woman grabbed David's arm with sudden fear. "They found me," she said. "They followed my trail here." "We have to run. Who found you?" David asked. "Who's out there?" The woman looked into his eyes with desperate urgency. "The ones who destroyed my world," she said. "And now they know you exist too." The bright lights outside David's house moved closer. The woman grabbed his arm tighter, her glowing scars pulsing faster with fear. "We need to hide," she whispered urgently. "Turn off all the lights. Close the curtains. Maybe they will think no one is home." David quickly switched off the lamps and pulled the curtains shut. Through a small gap, he could see 3 beams of light scanning his yard. The lights were too bright and too focused to be flashlights. They moved in perfect patterns like machines searching for something. "Who are you?" David asked quietly as they crouched behind his couch. "And what did you mean when you said I'm like you?" The woman took a deep breath. Even in the darkness, her skin had that strange blue-silver glow. "My name is Zara," she said. "I come from a planet called Kepler 442b. It is very far from here." David's mouth fell open. You're an alien? Zara nodded. Yes, and you are part alien too. That's impossible, David said, shaking his head. I was born here on Earth. My parents were human. The people who raised you were human, Zara corrected gently. But they were not your real parents. Those marks on your arms, they are not birth defects. They are genetic markers. Only people with Kepler blood have them. David looked at his glowing scars in shock. All his life, doctors had told him they were just unusual birthmarks. But how is that possible? Zara moved closer to the window and peeked through the curtain. The lights were still searching. 30 years ago, a Kepler ship crashed near this town, she explained. My people had been exploring space, looking for safe places to live. The ship carried families with children. She turned back to David. The crash killed most people on board, but some children survived. Humans from your town found them and raised them as their own. You were one of those children. David's world turned upside down. Everything he thought he knew about himself was a lie. My parents never told me I was adopted. They probably didn't know the truth, Zara said kindly. To them, you were just a hurt baby who needed help. Humans are good at helping others even when they don't understand. The searching lights suddenly stopped moving. David and Zara held their breath. Through the curtain, they could see dark shapes moving toward the house. They know we're here, Zara whispered. I'm sorry. I brought danger to your home. Why are they after you? David asked. Zara's eyes filled with sadness. My planet was attacked 6 months ago by an empire called the Dominion. They destroy worlds and take everything valuable. Most of my people were killed or made into slaves. She touched her wounded arm gently. I escaped with important information. The location of the last free Kepler colony. If the Dominion gets this information from my mind, my entire race will be extinct. David felt anger rising in his chest. They want to wipe out your people? Yes, and now they know about you too. The Dominion has been hunting for surviving Kepler children on different planets. They want to use our abilities for war. What abilities? David asked. Zara smiled slightly. You already use them without knowing. Your skill with machines? Your ability to understand how things work just by touching them? That comes from Kepler genetics. We have a natural connection with technology. David thought about all the times he had fixed broken engines without manuals, how he could sense what was wrong with machines just by feeling them. He had always thought he was just naturally good with his hands. There's more, Zara continued. Keplers can share energy with each other. When I touched your scars, I felt your strength. Together we are much more powerful than alone. A loud voice suddenly echoed from outside, speaking in a language David didn't understand. But somehow he knew what it meant. Come out, traitor. We know you are inside. Zara went pale. That's Commander Vex. He led the attack on my world. He will not stop until he catches me. David looked around his small house. There was no back door, only windows. They were trapped. What do we do? He asked. Zara stood up, determination replacing her fear. We fight. But first, I need to awaken your full abilities. It might hurt, but it's our only chance. She placed both hands on David's scars. Immediately, bright silver light filled the room. David felt power rushing through his body like lightning. His mind expanded, and suddenly he could sense every machine in his house. The refrigerator, the TV, his car in the garage. He could feel them all like extensions of his own body. Amazing, Zara breathed. You have strong Kepler blood, stronger than most. The front door exploded inward. Dark figures in metal armor.